Stand by. We're rolling along on this week. It's Wednesday, November the 8th. I got it right this time. On Weather in 5, I said it was February. We have weak weather systems that continue to just move along. They're not all, none of them are really doing very much. And we just sit and wait to see when this pattern is going to change. And we will talk about that tonight on a slightly shorter Joe and Joe weather show. Which is, of course, brought to you by Tempest by WeatherFlow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system. Join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is pinned to the top of the chat board. It's also on the descriptor to this video, this live stream, this podcast. Tempest is an affiliate of the Joe and Joe Weather Show. And use the coupon code I want a weather station for whatever you buy. And if you do, you get
10% off.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, we're going to have a short show tonight because Joe has to leave around 8 o'clock or so. Not that we are filled with all sorts of weather stuff that is going on, because it is indeed quiet. I'm going to tell you something, though. I kind of looked through a lot of stuff today, and I saw what CPC did on their long range, because they got the whole country above normal apparently for Thanksgiving week. I think they're going to. I think that forecast is going to be changed by the time we get there.
Okay.
I'm thinking we're going to see. There's a few things going on even for next week that I picked up on, Joe. That there's troughing along the East Coast, and I don't know. It may not get out of the way. It may not get out of the way until after next Wednesday. And, that's not going to leave you a whole lot to warm up into before another cold front comes by. I saw some things today. I wrote about it on my subscription site with regards to the long range and, the development of maybe an negative East Pacific oscillation signal for Thanksgiving week. And I'm going to stick by that for now.
Yeah. And what you're alluding to, I put on my Facebook pages. I wrote warm turkey this year. NOAA Climate Prediction Center strongly leading toward above normal temperatures for much of the U.S. during the time frame from November 16th to the 22nd. Only the far west, Los Angeles, for example, San Diego, expected to experience near to below normal temperatures. But in our neck of the woods, and that includes you too, Joe, the probability for above normal temperatures, according to CPC now, is in the 60 to 70% range. They, in fact, have 70 to 80% highlighted over most of the Great Lakes, like Chicago and Detroit and Milwaukee. But Thanksgiving is on November 23rd, so it would appear, if you were to take this long-range outlook at face value, that Turkey Day 2023 could be a balmy one. When I say balmy, I'm talking about temperatures that, well, normally at that time of the year, 23rd of November, the high should be peaking at around 51 or 52. So balmy would be, to me, somewhere in the upper 50s and maybe even the lower 60s. But you just pointed out that based upon all of what you looked at today, that you're disagreeing with the folks over at CPC.
Yeah, there's a lot to untangle, and I think some of it has to do with the fact that, once again, we have this problem with the GFS generating hurricanes in the Eastern Caribbean and then taking them out over Cuba into the Southwest Atlantic. None of the other models have anything even remotely close. And also, I think they got it, at least with regards to next week. I think it's going to be a struggle if there's more troughing off the East Coast. That at least may keep the Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic states cooler for a longer period of time. And I just don't know whether you're going to get, that much of a ridge, because there's something else that the GFS is picking up on coming down out of Canada late next week that brings another cold front through. And then you have the whole West just basically changing. It would not be it would not be the first time that CPC has put out a long-range forecast on their 8 to 14 or their 6 to 10, where they wound up having to flip it around when they do it on their next cycle. So I'm looking at the stuff I looked at today, and I'm disagreeing with what they said. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
Then, of course, you've got the Category 3 hurricane that moves through the Bahamas a week
Oh
from Friday.
yeah, I mean, it just keeps doing it. That's the thing that's driving me crazy here is the fact that it just will not let go of this, and it never gets inside the 7-day time frame. I went back as far back as I could on Tropical Tidbits right now to look and see where it was, and at 276 hours, it's where it is now. It should be showing up at like 192, but it never seems to get inside 70. It never seems to get inside the 7-day time frame. So I don't know. I would back away from the idea of the GFS being wrong on that if the Canadian had something or if the European had something. Neither of those models has shown anything, and there's really nothing much on the ensembles either. So I'm sticking with the idea that the GFS is wrong and that we're going to see, the models kind of move around a bit in the next couple of days. But I've made my case, and we'll see what happens. Meanwhile, on the satellite tonight, the next in a series of weak weather systems. I hesitate to say pathetically weak weather systems, but they sort of are. I mean, when you're worried about when your biggest concern is whether you're going to get 1/100th of an inch or not in terms of rainfall. That's pretty pathetic. And we do have some rain that moved out of the Great Lakes, and high clouds are now streaming northward. But the southern edge of that high cloudiness is not that far away from New York City in terms of the east-west line that it has. Because you get down into southern New Jersey, you get down into southern Pennsylvania and points south right now, it's mostly clear. And I just wonder whether there won't be anything more than a sprinkle. There'll probably be a little bit of a steadier rain in upstate New York, in Vermont, New Hampshire, and into Maine. Maybe a coating to an inch of snow and sleet in areas north and northeast of I-90 and east of 87, and then going on into Vermont, New Hampshire, and into interior Maine. But that's about it as far as that goes.
What's interesting is that most of upstate New York is under a winter weather advisory tonight. And more interestingly is the fact that Dutchess County, which is the county immediately north of where I am, is not underneath any weather advisory whatsoever. But right next door is Ulster County. They have winter weather advisories there. But really, you have to, this is the sad part, and I've said this for Orange County, that sometimes in Orange County, you'll have wintry weather north of Interstate 84. Well, Interstate 84 and points north of there only takes off a slice of far northern Orange County. Yet, for whatever reason, if there's wintry weather, along and north of that corridor, they put the weather advisory up for the entire county of Orange County. And in the case of Ulster County, I think that the winter weather advisory might be valid for a little bit of sleet, ice, or wet snow, but it would only be valid in the highest elevations, yet they have the entire county under a winter weather advisory. They did not do anything, though, to the county right next door in Dutchess County.
Right.
So it's interesting to me that, and all the way up to Columbia County, no advisory, and yet to the right, to the left, in the Berkshires, there's a winter weather advisory. And again, Ulster and Sullivan County are winter weather advisory. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But even in the worst case scenario, how much can you wring out? You just said, Joe, we're talking about not tenths of an inch of precipitation. We're talking about maybe hundredths of an inch of precipitation. So it doesn't really look like it's going to be anything major, even if it does come down frozen in parts of the Hudson Valley overnight tonight.
Right, and isn't it as much a factor of the fact it's probably the first one of the season, so they're figuring, it's probably nothing more than a coating to an inch or so, but first one of the season, didn't have a whole lot of snow to deal with last year. People are kind of rusty, even in areas in upstate New York and New England, which that's snow country. maybe they need to be reminded subtly, so they put it up as a precaution. I don't know. I mean, it just seems to me like it's a bit overdone, and you can see it in the blue, or the counties that are involved in New York State, Vermont, Western New Hampshire. Otherwise, the weather across the country is just it's just really ridiculously quiet. Now we do have rain, and actually some heavier rains are now moving across the state of Michigan. I think this is the latest satellite view. And the warm front, if you look at the southern edge of the rain over New York State on the radar, that's probably where the warm front is, from about Buffalo to Binghamton to maybe somewhere near Scranton, across northern New Jersey to about New York City. So all the echoes are to the north, and there's some, I guess when this stuff gets further east into somewhat colder air, it's in northeastern New York. You're gonna see that sleet and wet snow in the mix, but that's all there is here, and this whole area is sliding to the east. Meanwhile, it's another rain-free day in the middle and South Atlantic states, down to Florida, across the Gulf states. A little bit of precip aloft showing up in southern Mississippi, which is about all they can do here in this drought that's the severe drought that we have and the extreme drought that we have in parts of the Gulf states and into the southeast. And we're starting to see some rain being generated in central Texas. So that might be for some stuff that comes out later tomorrow and tomorrow night into Friday morning into the southeast. And we've got a little bit of snow in central Colorado. We've got some light precip from Wisconsin down into southern Nebraska, and the west is very quiet. WPC, Joe, once again, the light green is 100th to a 10th, and this is a 7-day rainfall forecast, and you've got this white area in between two light green areas, actually two white areas in between light green areas going down into North Carolina, where no precip is forecast for the next 7 days. And you know what? I think for many people in that zone in eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England probably won't see a drop of rain over the next 7 days, and maybe even a little bit longer.
Yeah, and by the way, the radar that you just showed seems to indicate that from New York City on north, there's rain falling or precipitation falling. However, the atmosphere down in the low levels is so very dry. I looked at the FOOS earlier today, the North American model, and it showed that the lowest level of the atmosphere, the R1 level, really doesn't go over 80% until after midnight tonight. So what you're seeing there right now, a lot, if not all of what you're seeing there right now in the Hudson Valley is not reaching the ground. It's what we call virga. And it will not be until the atmosphere gets completely moistened up from top to bottom before something actually falls to the ground. And again, that may not happen until sometime after midnight tonight. And take note of the fact that, although it's rather subtle, the extreme southern edge of that area seems to be progressing ever so slightly or ever so slowly to the north. So when precipitation finally reaches the ground, it may not be anywhere south of 84. The I-84 corridor, you'd have to probably go north of there to see any kind of precip, be it rain or light showers or sprinkles or even a few pellets of ice and wet snow. I think basically from 84 on south, overnight tonight at least, it's going to be dry. And then maybe, just maybe, during the first half of tomorrow, we might see a few widely scattered light showers and sprinkles falling over parts of the immediate tri-state area. So this is by no means a major precipitation outbreak. And in fact, it may be the first and only outbreak of precip that we're going to see around here until maybe, Joe, a week to 10 days from now.
Yeah. I'm begging for rain here in Georgia, especially in more in North Georgia than it's in South Georgia. There's no drought issues in South Georgia, but North Georgia here, we're very dry. We're in moderate to severe to even extreme drought in the Northwest, and of course, the extreme drought continues westward through Alabama, Mississippi, and particularly into Louisiana. which is horrific. It's hard for me to imagine, having lived in southeast Louisiana, which is a beautiful area, and it's a swamp. Okay, I mean, you are below sea level, and I mean, it used to rain all the time, every day. The idea that they have a severe, an extreme drought in southeast Louisiana is just mind-boggling to me. But you know what? Every once in a while, mind-boggling things do wind up happening. By the way, just want to acknowledge Bobby Whitaker hitting Super Chat tonight. He hit it before the show started tonight. Thank you, Bobby. Most appreciated for your very generous hit of the tip jar. WPC's snowfall forecast, probability for at least 2 inches. It's pretty much looked the same the last couple of nights. It's not really changed very much. We've got some snow on the Canada side of the U.S. border, which is, interestingly enough, continues to increase the snow cover in Canada, which is growing quite rapidly, and just a couple of places in extreme northwestern and northern Maine where they get into the 50% chance for at least 2, and there's literally nothing in the long range to focus on. I'm just going to really quick just run out, just touching upon what I was talking about earlier with respect to the long range, and this is the new ensembles, which I have only seen out to 200 hours. Some additional maps have come in since. So, we've got these troughs in the eastern part of the United States that carry us through the weekend. We are going to turn chilly starting Friday, but particularly we have to wait for a wave to go by off the southeast coast, and then it should turn chillier for Saturday and Sunday. And then there's another trough that drops into New England Monday night into Tuesday, and then it lingers off the New England coast on Wednesday. So that actually is going to probably keep the northeast and northern mid-Atlantic states cooler for at least an extra day next week. And then we kind of get into this sort of flattening ridge. The ridge is strongest on Monday and Tuesday in the middle of the country, but then by the time it reaches the East Coast, it flattens because there's another trough and upper low that's going to probably try and form in eastern Canada near Hudson Bay, and that just begins to squash the ridge. Now, this is Saturday, Joe, next Saturday, the 18th, and I don't know, this does not look particularly warm to me. The heights are normal or a little bit above normal, but then as we move into Thanksgiving week, most of those higher heights shift up into Canada, and I'm particularly focused on what's going on in the Gulf of Alaska and in Western Canada, because that's a negative EPO signal, a negative East Pacific Oscillation signal. And as those of you who have been watching here for a long, long time know that I'm a big proponent of the EPO. I think it's the most important of the teleconnections when it comes to cold. And this model and the other models in their long-range ensembles are sort of pointing out that that negative EPO signal is going to be important during Thanksgiving week. So again, I think looking at this 500 today, now they did it off the 0Z 500 last night. Their forecast, but looking at the runs today, both the 12Z, the 18Z, the European, the Canadian, they're all kind of in the same ballpark here. I just don't see how it's going to be. I guess it'll all depend on how the surface is set up and so on. But this to me says that the idea of having the entire country above normal is just way overdone. At the very least, it's way overdone.
Well, the interesting thing is, and I also read sometimes the forecast discussions that go along with these 6 to 10 and 8 to 14 day outlooks. And what is interesting, Joe, is that the forecaster who did these forecasts and made these maps up, his name at the CPC is Daniel Baradarian.
Right.
And he says, and I'm looking at the 8 to 14 day outlook, he says forecast confidence for the 8 to 14 day period above average, 4 out of 5, with good agreement on synoptic pattern along dynamical models and good day-to-day continuity of model solutions offset by weaker anomalies and probabilities from forecast tools. In other words, he's thinking that the odds that this is going to come to pass, the above normal temperatures almost from coast to coast, is pretty darn good. And in fact, on the 6 to 10 day outlook, and on the 6 to 10 day, I might add that he's got cooler than normal conditions over the northeastern United States.
Well, what's the last day of the 10-day outlook?
The last day of the 10-day outlook is November 18th.
All right. So I just went back to the 12Z GFS, and I'm just looking at the upper air of the 500, and I'm looking at the progression of what's going on this week, and then going into next week. Okay, so you've got this trough that goes into New England on Monday, and I don't think you'll argue with me that it probably will keep it chilly here, certainly through Tuesday and probably into Wednesday. But I'm looking at this next. Assuming it's right. Now, maybe the GFS is wrong with this system that drops down from Great Slave Lake into Hudson Bay and down into eastern Canada. Joe, this is Friday night. This is Saturday morning, the 18th. There is a deep upper low in Quebec, okay, with a trough down the east coast like this. Tell me how it's going to be above normal temperature-wise with an upper air that looks like that. And then if you carry it along, part of it lifts out, and then there's troughing that remains. And this is Thanksgiving week, and it's got all this troughing in the eastern part of the United States for the whole week, one system after another coming down around in that flow. I think, I don't know. I think the tools to me are there for you to kind of use them, but he went against it. Let's and his confidence is high, which is interesting. All right, well let's see. Well, on
the 6 to 10 day, he gives 5 out of 5. I have rarely ever seen. Now, this guy may be a rookie. I don't recognize the name. I read these discussions. I don't recognize Daniel Barandarian. I hope I pronounce his name correctly. No, I mean, I'm trouble. But he's got 5 out of 5. I mean, I usually see a lot of couching, if you will, on these forecasts. 2 out of 5, 3 out of 5. I've rarely ever see 5 out of 5, but he's gone 5 out of 5 for the 6 to 10 day period, stating good agreement among the forecast models on synoptic pattern evolution and strong day-to-day continuity of model solutions. So, tomorrow may be a different forecaster and a different idea or different concept, maybe more along the lines of what you're talking about or what you're seeing and what I'm seeing.
Yeah,
I agree with you. I mean, how do you go for those kind of temperatures when I see the possibility around the 21st or 22nd of snow and ice across much of the Northeast?
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing with that. I mean, I got the 12Z up on the screen. And let me just run through this real quick because it's coming up on 8 o'clock, and I know you wanted to leave early. So, this system goes, again, pathetic. Get it out of the way. We've got some rain that comes out of Texas into Arkansas, spreads across Tennessee into Western Virginia during Friday, Thursday night, Friday. Then there's another little surge that comes up Friday night into Saturday morning. I don't think there's more than a quarter to a half an inch out of that at most. And you've got the big high over Lake Superior, near Sault Ste. Marie. It's a cold, let's call it a chillish flow into the northeastern Mid-Atlantic states for Friday, Saturday, and particularly Saturday and Sunday. Then here comes the next short wave from Monday into New England, so that brings a little bit of a reinforcing surge of chilly air. I mean, you still have a 540 thickness at New York City on Wednesday afternoon. I'll give you that we will warm up Thursday, and I'll give you that we'll probably be warm Friday. But now suddenly there's another cold front Friday night and Saturday. And then when you look at what's going on in Canada, there's a big high that's north of Lake Winnipeg. That, again, this is a negative EPO signature, where you get a large high that starts to build in Canada, and you start to see cold air spreading out. It's not the coldest of air that you could see, but it's certainly cold air for this time of year. And I mean, there's your low. Who knows if that's real or not? But if there's a negative EPO signal, I think the two things that'll happen is that we will turn colder Thanksgiving week. I think we will also get out of this dry pattern that we're in and start to see a more active, stormier pattern. How that evolves is another question, but and I certainly don't, necessarily believe what the GFS is doing, but I think we're going to be going into a different scheme if these signals are correct.
And we shall see. And yeah, I'm gonna be running out right now, but of course we'll be back at the normal time and probably have a normal sized show
Yes.
tomorrow night at 7:35.
That's right. So the Joe and Joe Weather Show brought to you by Tempest by WeatherFlow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system and join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. Link is pinned to the top of the chat board. It's also on the descriptor to this video. Use the coupon code I want a weather station and you will get
You'll get 10% off.
Okay, so you go. You go. I just want to say a couple of things and then I'll go. All right. So all I want to
All
just
right.
say is
Have a good night, everybody.
yes. And I just want to say thank you, everybody, for being here. I know the show is at least 15 minutes shorter than we usually are, if not more. But we'll save it for a night when we'll go an hour and a half. And the other thing I will say is thank you for those of you on the chat or on the chat board, those of you who hit the like button. And thank you for those of you who are watching that are not on the chat board but lurking in the background. Just hit the subscribe button before you say goodbye tonight. Turn your notifications on because the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast is on Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m. and will be on Fridays and Saturdays when there are storms around. We certainly will let you know in advance if we are going to be doing that. So have a great night, and we will see you tomorrow. Nighty night.